departure gate. Thank you. Have a pleasant journey.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome aboard from the flight deck. This is your captain speaking. I want to thank all of you for being with us today. We're just getting the last of the luggage stowed on board and we should be departing on time in just a few minutes. I will be speaking to you again later on, so thanks again and enjoy the flight. Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, looks like I spoke too soon and We will be a bit delayed departing the gate. It should only be a few minutes, however. Thank you.
Cabin crew, please prepare for gate departure. Cabin crew, doors on automatic, cross-check and report, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we now request your full attention as the flight attendants demonstrate the safety features of this aircraft. Thank you very much.
This is your cabin service manager. Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned on the fasten seatbelt sign. If you haven't already done so, please stow your carry-on luggage underneath the seat in front of you or in the overhead bin. Please take your seat and fasten your seatbelt. Also make sure your seat bag and folding trays are in the full upright position.
Safety on board. Your hand luggage
At this
must
time,
be
we
placed in the
request that
overhead
all
bin
mobile
or
phones,
under the seat
pagers,
in front of you.
radios and remote control
It's
toys
forbidden to
be
place hand
turned off
luggage
for
in
the
front of
full
the
duration
bulkhead
of the
seats
flight,
or the
as
emergency
these items
exits.
may interfere with
For safety
navigational
reasons,
and
the
communication
use of
equipment
any
on this
electronic
aircraft.
devices is
We
prohibited
request that
during
all
taxiing,
electronic
takeoff,
devices
and
be
landing.
turned off. We
Personal
will notify
electronic
when it
equipment,
is safe to
such as
use such
telephones
devices.
and wireless transmitting
We
devices,
remind you that
may
this
not
is
be
a
used at any
non-smoking
time during
flight.
the flight.
Smoking is
Please fasten
prohibited
your
on the
seatbelt
entire
now as
aircraft,
we're taking
including
off.
lavatories. Tampering with, disabling or destroying the lavatory smoke detectors is prohibited
Because
by law.
turbulence can occur
If you have any
unexpectedly,
questions
you are
about our
obliged
flight
to have
today,
your
please
seatbelt
don't
fastened
hesitate
whenever
to
you're
ask one
seated
of our flight
until the
attendants.
aircraft
Thank
comes
you.
to a full stop after landing. Whenever the fasten seatbelt sign is on, the use of the lavatories is not permitted. For takeoff and landing, make sure that the back of your seat is in a fully upright position and that your tables are folded away. Secure infants with the infant's belt, which will be distributed by your flight attendant if needed. This is a non-smoking flight. Smoking is not permitted at any time on board. Smoking in the lavatories is dangerous and will activate a smoke alarm. If cabin pressure is lost, oxygen masks will be released automatically. Pull the mask towards your face and cover your nose and mouth. Then help children and other passengers. In case of impact on land or water, position yourself as shown on the screen. You may use either position. To evacuate the aircraft, follow the illuminated escape path markings. The emergency exits are identified by exit signs and are located as shown on the screen and the safety on board card. Your life jacket is located under your seat or below the armrest. Pull the life jacket over your head and attach the strap. Do not inflate your life jacket until you leave the aircraft. Pull the strap until the life jacket is properly adjusted. If the life jacket does not inflate or needs more air, blow through the rubber tube. Infant life jackets will be distributed if required. In case of emergency on water, the evacuation slides will serve as rafts. The Safety on Board card shows the various procedures and the use and location of the safety equipment. Please study the card carefully. In an emergency, you must follow the orders given by the crew. Thank you for your attention.
Für weitere Informationen wenden Sie sich bitte an Ihr Kabinenpersonal. Im Notfall müssen Sie sich an die Anweisungen der Besatzung halten. Wir danken für Ihre Aufmerksamkeit. Pour de plus amples informations, veuillez vous adresser à votre personnel de cabine. En cas d'urgence, vous devez suivre les instructions de l'équipage. Nous vous remercions de votre attention. Per ulteriori informazioni la preghiamo di contattare il personale di cabina. In caso di emergenza è obbligatorio seguire le istruzioni
Cabin crew, please
dell'equipaggio.
take your seats for
La
takeoff.
ringraziamo per la sua attenzione.
Approaching 06. On runway 06.
Ladies and gentlemen from the flight deck, I will be turning off the seatbelt signs shortly. We've got a top-notch cabin crew to serve you, and they should be able to begin that great service very soon.
This is your cabin service manager. Ladies and gentlemen, the captain has turned off the fasten seatbelt sign and you may now move around the cabin. However, we always recommend to keep your seatbelt fastened while you're seated. You may now turn on your electronic devices such as calculators, CD players and laptop computers. In a few moments, the flight attendants will be passing around the cabin to offer you hot and cold drinks as well as a light snack. Now sit back and relax and enjoy the flight. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Captain here again. Just to let you know that we've now reached our cruising altitude and we expect a pretty smooth run to our destination. There may be some slight turbulence a little later, but I've had clearance to climb a bit to avoid it if necessary. I hope you enjoy the rest of the flight. Thank you very much.
Is a language. So you learn the alphabet, the words, you learn where to put the right comma. That is exactly what the classical dance forms are.
Even those who disliked him and his brand of politics recognize these accusations for what they are: pathetic fantasies and deliberate knowing lies. Ted cannot defend himself against the web of deceit. Fortunately, others can and have defended themselves. Sir Cliff Richard, Paul Gambaccini, Lord Bramwell, a hero who served his country nobly, my late friend and founder of the Holocaust Educational Trust, Rebel Jalla, Harvey Procter, the late Leon Britton.
Как история многих людей, живущих в Советском Союзе.
This is a bunch of nonsense. I think Russia has shown a lot of maturity. I myself have come to Moscow to urge Moscow to stay committed, to stay involved in the Libyan file. We should not be left to other countries who are trying to monopolize the Libyan file. This should be a balanced approach. Russia, as a member of the Security Council, has an important role to play to make sure that they would veto anything that would be detrimental to the Libyan people, and they should be firm about reaffirming the Libyan people's right to vote. I know that some Russian officials have expressed doubts about elections. and the conditions. But I'm of the view, and this is what I've been arguing in Moscow, that rather than wait for stability in order to have elections, elections themselves can deliver stability, because people, when their aspirations are blocked and when they're not being given services and when they're being dismissed and marginalized and when they're being deprived of the right to vote, that is when things go unstable. Elections are important for stability in Libya and uniting the Libyan army and the police.
Then her desire to please her parents. And so she married a man who really was a great source of irritation to her own mother. So I give her a great credit for following her love and doing it when it was tough and tough on the family.
But the marriage was cut short after just 5 months. While fighting with his regiment in Northern Europe, Billy was killed by a German sniper.
It was the worst thing that could have happened. It was so close to the end of the war, and Billy was shot through the heart, leaving Kik utterly devastated.
Despite the shock and grief, Kik recovered. Within 2 years, she began seeing a second rich English lord, Peter Fitzwilliam. But in her family's eyes, he was even more inappropriate.
Kik is sent off for free fitting in time for Christmas. Carpet right for life.
Ready?
Yeah.
Let's play Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan. Wait. Let's pause. Episode 4. You started without me.
My cover's been blown. Turn off the lights.
I can see you behind the sofa.
You can't.
Yes, I can.
You can't.
I always let them know I'm on my way. It's part of the fun. They just want to know I'm coming home. They follow that little car right to our front door. I don't know who gets more excited that I'll be home for bedtime. Them or me.
Find the gift that helps them find their gift at fairy.co.uk. Remove condensation effortlessly with the Karcher Window Vac. Introducing the new Karcher Window Vac Anniversary Edition, celebrating 10 years of making windows sparkle.
My life these days just doesn't stop. But the Nintendo Switch lets me catch up with my favourite games in ways I never could before. And nothing compares to coming home for some real family time that we can both enjoy together.
Here is Sergey to tell you that you can get haircut meals every Sunday to Thursday for a whole year. Looking hot, Sergey? Because you're a chili.
When your baby feels hip, you can feel hip too. Thanks to the lovely organic ingredients we've grown for over 60 years. Feel hip with the Organic Baby Food Company.
There's a starman waiting in the sky. He'd like to come and meet us, but he thinks
It's right in front of you. L'eau de Chanel, le parfum.
Strength, size, power. These are the things a man needs to play rugby. And you have none of these, Williams, they said. But they were wrong.
something we think you'll really like.
Play the latest slots and table games or visit live dealers. PartyCasino.com.
This year, Halloween comes to life, and only they can stop it. Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween.
Wow. Yeah, really good actually, guys. Brilliant.
Catch up with the new series Sex, Lies and Murder at 10. While at 11 read those relationships which didn't work out, mainly because of my crazy ex. Investigators have a fresh lead on 2 new suspects in the killing of Zilpha Lowry.
In one letter, Port says that all of the men had died because they did not know the dangers of GHB. He even offered to give lectures about the subject when he was released. He said Port was not a killer. He was sticking to a line of defence that even some police officers had believed as the bodies turned up, that gay men were dying because of drugs overdoses, not because of murder.
He said he wanted to become an anti-drug advocate and stuff. He wanted to speak out at schools, colleges, universities, and in the media and stuff. He wanted to get himself a media profile, speaking out against drugs and stuff, and the dangers of drugs, and highlighting recreational drugs, if you will.
Through his pen pal, Port later perfected his defence. The young man had been inexperienced in how much drugs they should take. They'd overdosed and died. Port had not been responsible for their deaths, which had followed consensual sex. This was not going to be a straightforward case for detectives to gain a guilty verdict.
Why not before I show Richard, I'll call this CRT 2. This is Jack Taylor. Do you recognise that name?
It was during the inquest into one of Port's victims, Daniel Whitworth, that the first breakthrough occurred. The coroner felt that the Daniel Whitworth suicide note lacked authenticity and should be subject to more forensic analysis. One section did not ring true. Don't blame the man I was with last night.
They told us repeatedly that they had checked it, DNA checked it, sampled it, everything had been done, and that there was no reason for us to look into that. We was also told that all of the deaths were not connected, which obviously is not true, because the suicide letter stated that Daniel had supposedly killed Gabrielle, so it was connected. We were told there was no connection.
The coroner thought the same. She returned an open verdict. An open verdict means the death was suspicious, but there was no clear cause. Would the relevance of the suicide note expose what really had happened around and in St. Margaret's Churchyard? Were Stephen Port's mistakes about to be uncovered?
There are no eyewitnesses, no DNA, and no confessions.
It's very likely Dinah knew the person who did this to her.
I've killed a girl, I can kill again.
Sometimes the killer is closer than you think.
Killer in plain sight starts Monday at 8 on Crime Investigation.
Welcome to all that.
Life is better without thumbs, really.
Eat this apple, for it is delicious.
So good.
You see, thoughts are available. And they're even better on the best network for data. 3. Okay.
Looks like someone's playing Galileo, Gary. Try our all-new Hot House video, where every ticket's a winner every time you play.
Is dinner ready?
Not quite. Are you playing Galileo?
TSB believes that banks should exist to help local people and the communities they live in to thrive. And they're proud to be part of a Britain where millions of people are helping each other every day. That's why they partner Pride of Britain, to celebrate people like these, who go to extraordinary lengths to help others. Because people helping people is a good thing for all of us, isn't it?
Meet Fancy. She loves Scratch, the sexy, stinky spray. She really loves his macho big dog scent. But Tom, her house-proud owner, wouldn't. Fancy feels confident because she knows he's been using AmbiPure 3-Volution plug-in. Alternating scents, the freshness for up to 3 months. So what goes on at home doesn't stay at home. AmbiPure, breathe happy.
There's a new quilted toilet tissue in town, and Kenny will do anything to get his paws on it. Cushion quilted is made differently, with plump air cushions for irresistible softness and comfort. So Kenny thinks it's the quiltiest toilet tissue around. Introducing new Cushion quilted.
Thumbs what they want. The mobile network with endless calls, endless texts, and endless social media without eating your data. All hail Foxy! All hail Foxy! All hail Foxy! Pimp Casino is an exclusive online casino designed for ladies who like to have fun. There's always time for a few spins at Pimp Casino, whether you're getting glammed up like a golden goddess, searching for rainbow riches with Ruby, or killing time with Cleopatra. So what are you waiting for? Come on, girls, join Pimp Casino tonight and get £10 completely free. Plus, register tonight at pinkcasino.co.uk/iPad for the chance to win a brand new iPad. Come on, ladies, join the fun.
Find all the Tesco finest ingredients to make your own unmissable scallops and prawns, in-store and online. Food Love Stories, brought to you by Tesco Finest.
Visit Brighton and uncover why this seaside town is swimming in stories of murder.
He'd hired a van, had a shotgun in there. He'd also bought a great big hunting knife, had that with him.
I need to speak to Saxon under the mental health act. Got a shot back my hands.
Visit Murder Town. It's closer than you think.
The journey continues. Monday at 9 on Crime and Investigation.
Tomorrow at 9, shocking stories of those who were brutally victimised by their lovers or members of their own family in Britain's darkest homes. At 10, Catherine Kelly focuses on the location of a terrible crime and the impact it had on those that lived there in Murder Town. Then another catch-up at 11, Secrets of the Morgue, with the medical examiner helping the detectives.
The suicide note allegedly left by Daniel Whitworth, victim number 3, claims that Daniel had been with Gabriel Cavari, victim number 2, on the night that he had died.
In this note, he expressed not only his sorrow for committing suicide and upsetting his family and his friends by that, but saying that the trigger for it was the fact that Gabriel had died.
The note also urged people not to blame the man who Daniel had been with the night before. Who was that man? Stephen Port.
The apparent suicide note. This was finally submitted to a handwriting expert. And the handwriting expert looked at other things written by Stephen Port, other things written by Daniel Whitworth, and concluded that that suicide note was not written by Daniel Whitworth.
The handwriting matched exactly that of Stephen Port, and more evidence would emerge when other tests were carried out on the note.
And an expert made a statement to say that conclusively the paper that was used for the suicide note for Daniel Whitworth was the same as the paper on which Stephen Port had written his other letters. And crucially and clinchingly, Stephen Port's DNA was found on Daniel Whitworth's suicide note.
The sunglasses found by the body of another victim were tested for DNA. Sure enough, Port's was on them. Still, he protested his innocence.
And Stephen, did you write this letter to CLT and not the photos of it is found with Daniel?
Yet more evidence. A blue sheet which had come from Port's bedroom and found over a victim's body.
Not only was Stephen Port's DNA found on the Daniel Whitworth alleged suicide note, but Whitworth was found wrapped in a blue sheet with a blue sheet with him, and Stephen Port's DNA was also found on that sheet.
He told me the truth, Stephen. Yes.
It had taken forensic science to prove that the 4 deaths were linked and that Port had been with all of them, something he tried to cover up with a fake letter. It was the handwriting on that letter which was his undoing. When seen side by side with Cody Lackey's, which the police did not have available to them when investigating, the similarities are particularly pronounced on the letter P.
I mean, the fact is, yes, it's in theory, this was a wonderful plan. And if it had been properly executed and properly, he'd taken account of DNA and of handwriting comparisons and all the things that can be done with handwritten notes, if that was all dealt with, this was genius. This was the stroke of a master criminal.
But Port was no master criminal. His other mistakes were exposed, one by one.
Stephen Port's mobile phone was examined during the investigation, and it was found to contain no fewer than 83 separate video clips of pornographic material, many of which involved a man apparently having sex with another man who was unconscious. It was quite clear that this was something that represented Port's main sexual interest.
The evidence of his internet habits had revealed the full extent to Port's modus operandi. He would lure the men, often in an online disguise, to his flat, having met them via an app, and then spike their drinks with drugs.
Particularly within the gay community, relationships are formed through the use of the apps. It's a ready selection, rather than emerging organically. And really, if you think about it, what Stephen Port has done in selecting his victims is simply an extension of this. He's chosen his victims in the way that in the 21st century, people choose their partners, their relationships.
And then there was the discovery of CCTV linking Port with his 4th victim, Jack Taylor, which first exposed the serial killer to investigation.
And suddenly, that piece that we'd written a year before saying, don't worry guys, there isn't a serial killer on the loose, apparently, just felt, almost, there's a tragic irony to it, because it was wrong.
In November 2016, Port was found guilty of the murder of 4 men. Writing this letter was the killer's mistake, which led to his conviction, and a sentence which means he will join the small group of serial killers.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the flight deck, we're just about to begin our descent, and I will be turning on the seatbelt signs shortly. So please return to your seats as soon as you can. Thank you.
Every which way, and unfortunately it resulted in the deaths of 4 men.
I don't think you can put that much reminiscing into waste, to be honest. I don't think you can. Any of us. It's just, our worlds have just been squashed. He's a monster. That's all he is a monster. He had no value for life, and he didn't care what he did to boys and what he would do to people's families by what he's done. And being in prison is just too good for him, to be honest, because he's took people's lives and he's destroyed our families for the rest of our lives. Join me, Catherine Kelly, as I uncover some of our town's
Cabin
darkest
crew, please
secrets.
prepare cabin
The
for
UK
landing.
premiere of Blacktown continues Monday at 9.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now on our final approach. I'd like to thank all of you for flying with us today. We appreciate the business and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
History investigates some of the world's hardest prisons.
All the prison here that they can kill them.
Many times. The more provoked, the better for me.
Where gallows rule. And life in prison can be a death sentence.
They'll lock you up and throw away the key.
There's no escape. Behind bars. World's toughest prisons. Sundays at 10 on History.
He tried his hands on a paper towel which he put in the bin. His days were numbered.
A killer's mistake. Tuesdays at 9 on Crime Investigation.
When an eccentric playboy is murdered, a reporter is sure it's connected to another death thought to be an accident in a catch-up of sex lies and murder.
Ben was a child living in an adult's body, really. Then developed a love and obsession of Batman. He went from collecting kids' toys to collecting porn stars and strippers. Then used to frequent all the strip clubs, and which is where he met his wife Narcy. She would claim to be a voodoo queen. She practiced voodoo.
She indulged him in all his fantasies. He was found murdered in New York. And I'm like, this doesn't sound right.
There are no coincidences in murder. Crimes don't get as brutal as that. I mean, you know, with a millionaire, a porn star, and a voodoo queen.
Looking back at the 24 hours before its fateful launch, the Challenger disaster lost tapes is in an hour after we explore a cursed family in Brand New the Kennedys, a fatal ambition.
The Kennedys, America's unofficial royal family. For a century, they've dazzled the world with their glamour, charisma, and wealth.
They had a style about them that America had never seen before, and there seemed to be a sense of boundless optimism.
But the crown has been a heavy one to bear, with successive generations suffering heartbreak and loss.
It's hard to find in history a family that has suffered as badly as the Kennedys. Airplane crashes, overdoses, assassinations.
People talk about the Kennedy curse. How could so much tragedy befall one family?
And
What has been the effect on the surviving Kennedys? In this two-part series, we hear from family, friends, and eyewitnesses, many speaking for the first time on TV. We also reveal unseen letters and hear from the Kennedys themselves.
There is always a question of what do you do with tragedy? What do you do with challenges? And do you learn from them and do you take them on and understand them?
These are family members who were violently murdered. People say, well, it's a loss to the country, and no one thinks about the impact on a family.
July 16th, 1999. A plane carrying 38-year-old John F. Kennedy Jr., his wife and sister-in-law, takes off from New Jersey and then disappears from radar.
All of a sudden, the nation's attention again turns to this plane that's been lost. And they know it's tragic again. And they feel the same sort of emotions that they've felt. The whole country turning again, watching the Kennedy family suffer.
3 days later, the search teams located the wreckage off the coast of Martha's Vineyard. There were no survivors. Patrick Kennedy is JFK Jr.'s cousin and Ted Kennedy's son.
It always seemed in my family that we were haunted by this tragedy of not just my uncle's tragic deaths and assassinations, really murders, but then my cousin David overdosing, and my cousin John's plane crash. There was just this sense that, we were constantly reminded about tragedy is just around the corner.
As the family came to terms with yet another premature death, the public mourned with them.
People just said through the years, not again. You just wondered if all the rumors were true, that there really was. I don't believe in curses, but I think you could justify it in the case of the Kennedy family.
The family's American roots were laid down in Boston, Massachusetts. Their original ancestor landed in 1849 after crossing the Atlantic. Kathleen Kennedy Townsend is the eldest daughter of JFK's brother, Bobby.
The first Kennedy to arrive in the New World, in the United States, was Patrick Kennedy, my great-great-grandfather, who came from New Ross, Ireland. He came during the potato famine, but the rumor has it he really came because he had a crush on a woman.
That woman was Bridget Murphy, with whom he'd later have 5 children. As Irish Catholic immigrants, they were shunned by a Protestant-dominated society.
I heard from my grandmother growing up about the incredible prejudice against the Irish, that there were signs that said, help wanted, no Irish need apply.
My family was excluded. It's hard to imagine, given the fact they're so central to the American experience, that the Kennedys were discriminated against, and that one of the defining characteristics of my family was the desire to work their way out of the shadows and the margins of society as Irish Catholics.
It was the Kennedys' only son, PJ, who first succeeded, becoming a bar owner, moneylender, and eventually a leading figure in Boston politics. But it was his son, Joseph, who would lay the foundations of America's most powerful dynasty.
Joe Sr. was a very complex character, forthright, honest, but definitely there's a sort of feeling of shadiness, a feeling of he would do anything, he's completely ruthless in order to get what he wants.
At age 20, Joe Kennedy won a place at Harvard University. It was a stronghold of Boston's traditional upper class, or so-called Brahmin elite, and prejudice was rife.
He is blackballed from entering the clubs, which are so important to for entry into public life effectively in Boston at that time. I think very much spark a sense of resentment and drive in Joe Kennedy to prove that he is able to succeed against the odds effectively.
As a student of economics, he displayed an early talent for business and money-making.
couldn't escape that discrimination, and he was going to overcome it in any way that he could. And wealth was one of the ways he thought he could overcome it.
On so many levels, my grandfather's life was a story of defiance, right? And what that drive makes possible in a human being if they are so driven.
On leaving Harvard, Joe Kennedy's drive was evident to all. At 25, he became the youngest ever head of an American bank and an expert investor.
Joe Sr. made his fortune in the stock market. He made very good bets. He bought low, he sold high, he was gifted.
But as well as wealth and status, he also craved influence. He achieved that through marriage to the daughter of Boston's most powerful politician, Mayor John F. Fitzgerald.
My great-grandfather, Honey Fitz, was the first Irish-born mayor of Boston. And he had a great singing voice, and he loved to sing Sweet Adeline, and he loved to go out and meet people. He was short of stature, but big in personality and blarney, and he would just burst into song, and he developed a nickname, Honey Fitz, because he had such a smooth, mellifluous, sweet voice.
In 1906, Joe began dating the mayor's teenage daughter, Rose.
Rose was the apple of her father's eye. She attended private schools, very bright young woman, and her father was very, very proud of her.
The couple married in 1914 and had their first child, Joe Jr., a year later. 8 more would follow. Joe had grand ambitions for them all, while Rose set the highest standards.
My grandmother was very strict. She would come to our house and she would tell us, how to eat, how to speak, when to go to bed. My parents would ask us to write her thank you
2000.
notes. She'd return those thank you notes with red lines, correcting our grammar and our diction and our spelling. So I didn't have a really warm feeling about my grandmother.
From the start, Joe dreamt of his eldest son running for high political office. But if he was going to support him, he'd need more money. So, he took a gamble. He left his secure banking job and headed for Los Angeles.
Just as Hollywood is coming to the fore in the 1920s and 30s in the motion picture industry, Joe Kennedy goes there to be an executive producer, and he learns the ropes.
My grandfather was the head of 3 studios in Hollywood, so he was very well aware of image and the importance of image.
As a movie mogul, Joe Kennedy enjoyed power as well as perks. As Rose stayed at home with their young family, he conducted a string of affairs with famous actresses.
Joe Kennedy was a notorious philanderer, brought home his mistress, Gloria Swanson, to his home in front of his children. They knew that he was having affairs.
And Gloria Swanson said this wonderful thing in her autobiography. She said, "Was Rose a fool or just a better actress than I was?"
By the end of the 1920s, Joe had made an estimated $5 million from banking and movies.
1,000.
But thanks to a series of shrewd property investments, that soon grew rapidly.
In the 1930s, Joe Kennedy was named the 4th richest man in America. I think his fortune was worth somewhere around, in those days, about $2 to $3 billion, which in today's money would be in the billions.
1,000.
This wealth brought him the influence he craved. In 1932, he helped bankroll the election of Democrat President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And 6 years later, he got his reward. Roosevelt appointed him ambassador to Britain, the first Catholic to hold the post.
I'm looking forward with great anticipation, taking up my duties here.
But what about your family of 9, Mr. Kennedy?
Not wishing to make the housing problem of England any more complicated, I'm bringing them over in installments.
In depression-torn Britain, the Kennedys were a glamorous diversion. Fated by the press, welcomed by high society.
When he became ambassador to Great Britain, he thought that he had really arrived, because here he was in knee breeches, seeing the Queen of England, no less, and hobnobbing with British aristocracy, and this gave him great satisfaction.
there was no mistaking why it was the Court of St. James, because that was the place where he could look back across the pond, so to speak, and show all of his Brahmin colleagues that he got to be head of their, tribe.
But the family's place at the centre of fashionable London life wasn't to last. Within 2 years, they were on their way back home, and Joe Kennedy's dreams of shaping American politics were in ruins.
Bearded Man, we can't promise we'll make you a hipster, but the complete Barber Club range by L'Oreal Men Expert with cedarwood essential oil will tame your beard and help soften your skin. Barber Club by L'Oreal Men Expert. Got a beard? Welcome to the club. Now, shape your beard or get a clean cut look with the new Barber Club Shave Cream, available at Superdrug.
There's never a good time for the internet to go down. But with BT Plus, let us know and we'll send a 4G mini hub to get you back in the game. BT, be there.
In the Furniture Village sale, this beautiful sofa is now just $7.95, and it's available from stock. Don't miss our extra sale discounts. Why just waste the day when we can squeeze it? Try new Colgate 2 Color Blades for a happy Colgate smile.
Investing. It's a bit of an old boys club. The dress code, strictly pinstripes. And it helps to be well connected. City slickers, traders, and high flyers are all invited. Introducing the Santander Digital Investment Advisor for a new kind of investor. Get started with just £20 for your personalised report.
It's easy to spot the Tesco trolley here. It's the one with the lowest price. Our best value is exclusively at Tesco. Every little helps.
Did you know that at some point 84% of the UK population suffer from joint pain? Try Voltarol Joint Pain Relief Gel. Unlike tablets, Voltarol is applied directly to the source of pain, penetrating deep into the skin towards the joint. This allows its powerful anti-inflammatory ingredient to be retained in the joint tissue to provide all-day relief at the source of pain. Nothing is stronger for all-day joint pain relief. Try Voltarol Joint Pain Relief Gel, now available in your healthcare aisle. This has been a Medifax advertisement for Voltarol.
With over 7,500 flights a day, 63,000 staff, that's a record passage to go. Fly more flights through your nations and enjoy the world. Bird.com, players. People don't even know that I exist.
We find this on almost every day.
World's busiest airport, Wednesday at 9 on Channel 5.
In 1938, Joe Kennedy was America's ambassador in London, and his family were British media celebrities. But their stay was to come to an abrupt end. Shortly after Britain went to war with Germany, he put forward a controversial plan.
Joe Kennedy was absolutely convinced that Hitler was going to win. He just said within 2 weeks Hitler will be in Buckingham Palace. He absolutely believed it. And he also believed this was not America's war. And that was because he knew his sons were raised in such a way they would sign up.
And so as the war came on, he wanted to appease Hitler to try to avoid war. This did not go over well, either in England or the United States, and that was the end of both his diplomatic career, and it was also the end of Joe Kennedy's career.
Cabin crew, please prepare cabin for landing. Please prepare cabin for landing. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now on our final approach. I'd like to thank all of you for flying with us today. We appreciate the business and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.
It was determined that Joe Jr. would become the future president of the United States.
Joe Kennedy Sr.'s favorite was Joe Jr. Because he was the first and he was the golden boy and he followed all of Joe and Rose's rules and he was so successful. He was a good student. He was a star athlete.
Air Cadet Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. reports for preliminary training. With other college men, he would drive for Navy Wing.
When America joined World War II, Joe Jr. enlisted as a Navy pilot. His father viewed it as the ideal career move for a future president. But he also worried about potential obstacles on the way to the White House. Chief among his concerns was his eldest daughter, Rosemary.
When she was born, the doctor was late and the midwife more or less pushed the baby back in, didn't want the baby to be born until the doctor was there, and the baby was starved of oxygen, which meant that Rosemary had a mental age of about 11 for the rest of her life.
As a youngster, Rosemary was keen to enjoy the same social life as her friends, but fitting in was difficult.
My father used to tell me that when they went to these social parties in Palm Beach and the lake, my Uncle Jack would see his sister Rosemary kind of shunned because she was different. My father said, your Uncle Jack used to go and sit beside her or stand and talk to her instead of all the fancy people at the parties.
As Rosemary grew older, she began to experience extreme mood swings.
Because of her intellectual afflictions and learning disabilities, she also suffered from quite a bit of anxiety, and she began to lash out. Her temper tantrums became more violent, and they would have to call in a doctor to try to sedate her.
For her parents, such conduct was not only embarrassing, but potentially damaging to the family.
Joe and Rose did not want imperfection.
Approaching 06.
During that time, there was a stigma attached to having children with mental illness or intellectual disabilities. And they didn't want anyone to know because it might affect the chances for their sons, for their careers.
In 1940, Joe arranged for Rosemary to attend a summer camp in Massachusetts. He hoped the experience would improve her behavior. But instead, it worsened. Terry Marotta's mother and aunt were in charge of the camp.
My mother and aunt were frantic
500.
about her behavior because they felt that her presence was compromising the safety and well-being of everyone else in the camp.
400.
Soon, the camp's owners even feared she'd become pregnant while staying there.
Rosemary was very beautiful. Some said that she was the most beautiful of the Kennedy women.
300.
She was tallish for her time. She was voluptuous.
And Rosemary is wandering off into the woods at
200.
night, and they become extremely fearful that something is
100.
going to Rosemary, and they can't spend all their time
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Matters came to a head. Terry's mother, Caroline Sullivan, wrote to Rose saying her daughter would have to leave. This is the letter, now seen for the first time.
She was so difficult of adjustment in our group of normal young children that for the well-being of everyone, I found it necessary to give my own constitution. The situation turned out to be so impossible that after giving it every effort and a thoroughly fair time, it seemed necessary to request from you an
termination of that flight this morning, so we ask that you try to take that rocket closet over the bits from the article you may have brought with you. And so there should be taken without the other habitual candidates of their ship
I'm
is
so
down
sorry
outside.
you had to lose me. It's not my
On
fault,
behalf of your
darling.
entire bunch, we're
Have
sorry
everybody
for
write me a
sending you
short
this
little
morning.
note.
Have a
I've been
pleasant
crying
day.
over it. I know you all love me so. I'm going to be a bit tired from all the studying this summer and the fall. My love to all, Rosemary.
After Rosemary's removal from the camp, Joe Kennedy decided on drastic action. Without Rose's approval, he paid doctors to perform a new type of brain surgery on their 23-year-old daughter. In November 1941, she underwent a prefrontal lobotomy.
The procedure at the time required drilling into the side of the skull. The doctors strapped Rosemary down on the table.